Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Last week, while I was traveling for business, I went and visited Sweetwater Sound. And boy, what a killer place that is. That's actually where I've mail ordered most of my gear that I use on the YouTube channel. And they had it's like a little mini Google campus. I mean, they've got like a cafeteria style restaurant, they've got a fitness center, they've got like a doctor's office, and all kind of cool perks for the job. And which is really amazing because their prices are extremely competitive. So not that I'm shilling for Sweetwater here, but and my sales rep told me, say, hey, if you're in the neighborhood, pop by and give you the VIP tour. So I said, all right. And I had lunch there. And what did they have but Nashville Hot Chicken? I made a joke. Let me preface this by saying it was delicious. Okay, I'm not bagging on their hot chicken one bit. Okay, it was good. But it was very, very mild. So I thought what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shoot a little video for my wife's YouTube channel, the La Ricetta Show, which is Italian for the recipe. And we're going to make Nashville hot chicken. And instead of putting it on bread, usually you put it on bread, I'm going to put mine on waffles. And none of this Bisquick stuff and none of this Aunt Jemima stuff. We're going to make this stuff from scratch. And you're going to see that it's really not that huge a deal to do. The trick is to make sure that you follow what's called mise en place. And that means everything in its place. And you lay out all your ingredients ahead of time, and that way you just have to go for them and dump them in and mix and all this, that, and the other, and you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off, sorry chicken, and having to find your ingredients. You just get them all out and get them ready and get them at hand. So let's get started. One important factor we're going to deal with here is timing. You want everything to come out at the same time so it's hot and fresh. Now, it's not always possible, but you can get pretty darn close. So, one thing that we're going to do, since we're going to be cutting up and frying chicken, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our oil heated up, because that's going to take a bit. So, we will put our oil. Now, I prefer to use a Dutch oven. I know y'all can do the whole thing with the air fryer and the Ninja and the Woody Foodie and Tofutti and all that stuff, but I'm old school. I mean, my grandmama on my daddy's side was a little 4-foot tall, blue-haired Italian grandma, and then kinfolk on my mother's side, were from the South, the deep South, and I had all the Southern cooking stuff from there. And then, of course, my Italian grandma had the Northern Italian cooking. So, now I'm going to set this over here out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and get my oil cooking. And if you're going to do any kind of cooking, you want to invest in a good thermometer. Now, there's all kinds out there and for different things, but just a good general all-rounder is an instant read thermometer like this, and this one's a ThermoPen. It's a little pricey compared to a lot of them, but it reads real quick and it's accurate and it's good. So now, while that's warming up, that's going to take the longest. The next thing I'm going to do is mix my dry ingredients for my waffles. We're going to start off with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we are going to have ourselves 2 tablespoons of sugar, right And we're gonna do some baking powder and some buttermilk. Now, you know, it's really hard keeping buttermilk because it goes bad so quick, but you can get dried buttermilk and just throw the powder in there, and that will substitute along with a comparable amount of water or dry ingredients. Like I'm going to use the milk, regular milk here, and makes buttermilk. How about that? I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of baking powder, which happens to be 1 tablespoon. All right. And we'll throw a little bit of baking soda in here. What that's going to do is that's going to give us some lift, make our waffles nice and fluffy. Then we're going to have 2 heaping tablespoons of buttermilk powder here. That'll do is that'll give our batter just a wee bit of tang. Right. All right, so that's pretty much it for our dry ingredients, with the exception of a little bit of salt. Okay, salt enhances the flavor. Then what I'm going to do, take me a whisk, and just kind of whisk these dry ingredients together. Now, you don't want to go crazy here. You're going to have a, you know, dust explosion everywhere with all the flour. So you just kind of start and fold, and mix all your dry ingredients together here. And like that. Now we're going to do our wet ingredients, okay, which is going to be our 2 cups of milk. Okay, that's done, so that's going in the sink. 2 large eggs. A handy, helpful tip, don't ever crack your eggs on the edge of a bowl, okay? And if you're really bad at it, you probably want to crack them into a separate dish first, so that you don't get any shell in your recipe. Now me, I've cracked a few eggs in my time, so I don't worry about it. And then, I got egg spooge on my hands here. I'm going to rinse my hands off here. Okay. And then we need to have butter. 8 tablespoons of butter. We're going to melt it over the stove here. Now there's varying recipes for different kinds of waffles. This is almost like almost a Belgian style waffle recipe, but it's going to have, I'm going to put a little more lift in it, and that'll make it a little bit less dense. All right, so I got my stick of butter in my little saucepan. We're going to set that over here to melt all nice and pretty. Let's check see where our oil is at. Yeah, it's got a ways to go yet. About 265. We want to get it up to about a good 375. And it's always helpful if you're trying to make a particular dish to go ahead and have a recipe handy. Now I keep mine off to the side here so I can watch and read it. But now I'm going to go ahead and mix these eggs into this mixture with my milk. You mix your eggs first, then put the milk in. It don't matter. Whatever floats your boat. Now the trick is with waffles and pancakes is you really want to wait to prepare your batter until like the very last minute. Now we've got that all together. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our dredge and our dip for our hot chicken. Keep an eye on our butter here. Don't want to burn it. Another little trick there to make sure you don't burn your butter. If you're doing like a whole stick or a bunch of chunks, when you get your pan good and hot, you can go ahead and just let that, when you see the last little bit of solid butter in there, you go ahead and pull it off your heat, and that way the rest of it will melt. Ooh, this is where the hot in Nashville Hot Chicken comes from. So I got my dredge here, which is flour. Okay, but you know what you can do too if you like. Now, I'm deviating from the recipe just a little bit, but you take you some corn flakes or frosted flakes or Cap'n Crunch is really good too. I'm not wanting to sweeten this up too much, so I'm just using plain corn flakes. But if you use frosted flakes or Cap'n Crunch or something like that, it'll add just a little tiny bit of sweet, maybe to kind of tame off some of this heat that I'm fixing to throw in this. And what you do is you just, I don't know, grab you a couple of handfuls, stick it in a Ziploc bag, and then just knead the bag and crunch them up. What that's going to do is that's going to make your batter kind of crunchy, almost kind of like that chicken you get at that place with the guy with the white beard. And let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah. So what we got here is lots of cayenne pepper. This is 3 tablespoons of cayenne pepper. Okay? So this is not going to be mild. Okay? Unfortunately, this would probably send a lightweight to the ER, but that's okay. We got that. Now, what we want to do here is we get some salt. Just dredge me a little bit over there like that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of fold this all together. And this is what we're going to dredge our chicken in. And just combine it together really good. You want your cayenne fairly evenly distributed amongst the batter, or this is going to be your batter, or your breading, I should say. Oh yeah. Now if you've done it right, your flour mixture, your dredge as they call it, is going to have a bit of a red tinge to it. That way you know you've got your heat right. Okie dokie. Oh yeah. Because I'm a dago Italian, I'm gonna throw some garlic to it. Yeah, I know. You're like, what's the measurement? Well, when you're an Italian, too much is never enough garlic. But if you're gonna do it like a normal person, then probably, I don't know, tablespoon, maybe. 2 tablespoons if you like garlic. And I'm just using good garlic powder. Yeah. Put that back. Always want to put your stuff back as you finish with it. And I'm just going to throw a little black pepper in there. We've already got our salt. What we're doing here is we are building flavor. You don't want something that's just so bloody hot that you can't eat it. Okay? Now, I'm here to tell you, this is going to be hot, but it's going to have flavor as well. You know, this is really kind of odd because I never used to like spicy food. Then my wife and fellow chef Tammy kind of turned me on to it. And we kind of had a running joke one time. She was doctoring up some canned green beans and put some red pepper flakes in it. And I don't know, she didn't put a lot in there, but apparently I got like a whole bunch of them in my serving. It's like, oh God. All right, we are at temperature. So I am going to turn my oil down. Our oil's good. Now what's important when you're frying, people think, you know, oh God, you're fried food, blah, blah, blah. Well, let me tell you something. If you properly fry food, okay, very, very, very little grease should actually be absorbed into the food, okay? Because as you're frying it, the moisture is boiling out of your food and it is going to keep pushing the oil away, okay? But if you over fry, then, well, and your food will suck that grease up like a sponge. Now, that's our dry ingredients. Now we're going to do our wet ingredients here for our chicken here. So we're going to have 2 eggs. Now you want to use large or extra large eggs for this, by the way. Ooh, that was a double yolk. Well, surely there's got to be like a superstition somewhere about that. You get a double yolk egg or something. All right. Okie dokie. Now I'm just going to go ahead and whisk my eggs here first. You don't want to beat the hell out of them. You just want to just kind of break them up. Right, now we got some milk. 1 cup of milk. All right. A little more salt here for some flavor. And we also want to use some hot sauce. You don't want to use like a Louisiana style hot sauce. I happen to like Texas Pete. And a dab will do you. And again, you should have a nice kind of red, kind of a red color there. That way you know you got your heat metal right. Now, here's the extra bit, beer. Now, oh look, there's a little bit left. You just want to use like a lager. I kind of like Dos Equis Amber, but you don't want to go any darker than that. What that's going to do, that's going to work with that AP flour, all-purpose flour, and it's going to make your batter nice and light. Okay. Now, we are ready. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to move this over here because we're going to go in that first. In here, we'll just leave this up over here out the way for the moment. Move all this, and I got my waffle iron here. I went ahead and just plugged it in before I started because good waffle iron is just going to sit there, come up to temperature, and that's it. And get you some cooking spray to spray your waffle iron with. Then you want to do a couple things here. Number one is you want your chicken as dry as possible, so get you some paper towels. Now I'm using 2 large chicken breasts on the bone. Now I like using chicken breasts on the bone because when you cook it, you get more flavor. Just plain chicken breasts, I don't know, it's like a McDonald's chicken nugget, you know, it's just, yeah, it's meat and there's some texture there, but no real flavor, just salt. So, now what I'm gonna do is get you a good, sharp chef's knife, all right? And the first thing we'll wanna do is we're just gonna wanna put this on our little cutting board here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run this thing right, skin and all. All right. You hear crunching, you know you're doing it right. And I'm gonna put this back over here. Okay. Alrighty. Now, you're gonna notice these breasts are pretty thick, okay? Now, if I sit there and throw these things into 270 or 375 degree oil, all right, they're going to cook on the outside, but they're not going to be cooked on the inside, okay? That's the drawback to using, you know, large cuts of meat. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cook our chicken in the oil, but then we're going to finish it in the oven. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to go ahead and start my oven. Okay, and that can be warming up. I've got a gas stove, so it's going to heat up right quick. So now we're at the point where we have to be very careful about cross-contamination. All right, so you notice this hand, chicken spooge. This hand, no chicken spooge. But it doesn't matter because before I go and do anything else with this hand, I'm going to wash my hands over here. But for right now, what we need to do is we want to try and get our chicken as dry as possible. Okay, and what that's going to do is we get the outside of our chicken nice and dry, all right? That's going to allow the breading to stick much better. You know, that's nothing worse when you're making fried chicken and all your breading falls off. Well, that's because your meat was too wet when you breaded it. I know that sounds counterintuitive because you're dipping it in an egg wash, but egg wash is a protein. Water and proteins don't play well together. So if your chicken's all wet, what's going to happen is your protein's not going to stick to it. Maddie, the MacGyver's Workshop dog, is sitting off to the left over here off camera. And I have that critter's undivided attention. She's such a little sweetheart. He just showed up on the farm one day and said, "Will you be my humans?" You know, of course, you know, I've got the Dr. Doolittle gene, so I'm like, "Oh, cute doggy, come live with us and we'll spoil you to no end." And we have. Yes, we have definitely spoiled this critter to no end. Now we're going to do something else here interesting as well that you might find to be somewhat counterintuitive. When we dredge our chicken, we're going to let it rest for a moment or two before we actually put it in the fryer. And we're going to take our chicken, now you can do this one of two ways, okay? You can wet your chicken first and then dredge it, or you can dredge it first and then dip it and then dredge it again. It's really just a matter of preference. If you don't get your chicken really good and dry, then it's better to dredge it first, because that'll help absorb some of the moisture that may be on the surface of the chicken. Now, since we want a nice hearty breading on here, we're going to dip and dredge twice. And you want to shake off any excess. Now see, on this one, I'll go ahead and dredge first. The reason for it is it just dries, extra dries the surface of your chicken. Can you believe it? It's like January 25th, and it was like almost 55, 60 degrees outside today here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. And we got a thunderstorm going on out here. Can you believe that? So you're gonna hear some rain coming here. And yes, your fingers are gonna get sticky. So I had it on my oil on a low heat, just hold temperature. By using a cast iron Dutch oven, that's going to help hold the oil at a temperature, because we're going to drop the temperature of the oil is going to drop considerably when we put this chicken in there. Now I'm just going to do 2 batches, 2 pieces at a time. And when you put your chicken in, obviously you don't toss it in there because you don't want it to splash, okay? But you just gently lay it in there and roll it over, okay? You got really good gloves on right here with all that breading on your fingers. And you should hear a little bit of sizzle. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands off here, because I'm going to do mine here roughly 4 minutes. You also want to watch your breading. When it's GBD, it's done. It's golden brown and delicious. And then we'll temp the chicken and finish it in the oven. Because if you try and fry a big thick piece of meat all the way through, you're going to burn your breading, burn the outside, and it'll be overdone. So the chicken will be like dry like a shoe. Nice and brown. Now what I'm going to do here, we'll do like this. Now I'm going to put them on a sheet pan with a little, kind of like a little cooling rack there. That way they're not, sitting there laying in their own fat. If you're doing a whole bunch of this stuff, you're probably going to want to let your oil recover a little bit. But for what we're doing here with just chicken for me and the wife, we're good. If I was concerned, I would recheck the temperature on my oil and make sure that my oil stays above at least 350, 360. And our whole chicken's almost there. Now you're probably wondering, on the Limoncello show, which is typically Tammy's gig, why I'm cooking. Well, I'll tell you why I'm cooking, okay? And it's because it's Monday, and my wife works for literally Attila the Hun. I mean, this boss is psycho. I'm talking, you know, Alfred Hitchcock psycho. So, you know, you can just tell, a good husband knows, okay, to say, honey, why don't you let me cook today? Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stick these in the oven that I preheated. And I'm gonna let these finish in the oven so I don't burn my breading. Now it's time to work on our waffles. Now we're going to take our melted but cooled butter, add it into our wet. Right. Mix my wet into the dry. And you don't want to beat the heck out of this. You know, some lumps are okay. You just want to combine it. Otherwise, you're going to have a super dense, you know, almost like a bad Belgian waffle. I think the Alton Brown once said, is you mix for like 10 seconds and then walk away. And what I do is I mix mine until, you know, the ingredients, all the dry ingredients are wet. And if you've got lumps, that is totally fine. Here's the other bit. All right, let it rest. Meanwhile, I'm going to zap my waffle iron. With some cooking spray. Let it come back up to temp if it cooks off, but if it's a good waffle iron, it'll stay hot. What we're gonna do, open up our waffle iron, keep good and hot. I'm gonna use me a ladle, and I'm gonna get me a rubber silicone spatula. And you can tell your waffle batter has bubbles in it now, and it's going to be thick, and that's good. That's what you want. And you want to ladle your batter in here. You want to follow your waffle iron maker's instructions. They'll usually tell you how much batter to put in, but since I've used this waffle iron quite a bit, I know just off the top of my head how much to put in here. And close this bad boy up. And if you make a mess, hey, it's no big deal. That's what they make soap for. Now what I'm going to do, don't really need a glaze. Could just use you some good, real, old-fashioned maple syrup. None of that Aunt Jemima stuff. And then what I'm going to do is, when I make my glaze, I take me some honey, and I get good local stuff. I mean, you can use the plastic bear, and I have, and they're good. But I got friends at work that keep bees, so I always buy their honey when they have it ready and they sell it. That's a lot of work, man. Going through the process of keeping bees and harvesting honey and all that. That's some good YouTube watching there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put pretty much equal parts honey and maple syrup, and then I'm going to warm it up in the microwave for just a little bit, just to thin it out, because we're going to throw some heat to this too. Just about 30 seconds. What that will do is that'll warm it up and thin it out a little bit. And then we're going to put a dash of hot sauce in it, and maybe a little cayenne if I'm feeling frisky. All right, look at that. Our waffles say red eye. Now what I'm going to do, this is where I'm talking about, you know, where you keep all your food warm and fresh at the same time. These waffles are going to cool off pretty quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in the oven. So it'll stay nice and warm, and then we're going to check the temp on our chicken again. Just a few more minutes. That chicken will be good to go. There we go. Now what we'll do is we will go ahead and kind of stir up our honey and maple syrup mixture. Now, I know real maple syrup, and I don't think, you know, there's so many folks out there that, you know, they don't even know what real maple syrup is or tastes like. And when they do taste it for the first time, or they do have it, they're like, oh, this stuff's thin as water. Well, yeah, you know, it's not supposed to be the consistency of axle grease like, you know, the stuff you get at the grocery store, or your, you know, store-bought imitation maple syrups. And that's all marketing hype. Make you think, oh, a thicker syrup's better. Nah, thicker syrup ain't better. Real maple syrup is better. I could devote a whole video to talk about different kinds of maple syrup and, you know, all that. But just a good, quick and dirty way to know is the darker the syrup, okay, usually the later in the season that it's been harvested. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw me a little zap of hot sauce in here. Though, as I said, we don't really need it because we got the majority of our heat in our batter. And if you were just making hot chicken and waffles, then, you know, you would leave it at that and then just put your maple syrup or your honey or whatever on top. But yeah, we're going to, as Chef Emerald says, take it up a notch. So we're going to have a little bit of heat everywhere in the equation here. So the sweetness of the syrup and the honey is going to offset a little bit of that heat. And then with all the flavor we've built in that batter, yeah, it's going to be some good stuff. Really good stuff. I'm taking my chicken out roughly at about 150-ish. 150, 151, 2. And I'm gonna leave my waffles in there, let them crisp up a little bit. And what we're gonna do here is let that chicken rest for just a minute, okay? And what's gonna happen is when you let your meat rest after you cook it, then number one, the temperature is gonna come up about 5 or 10 degrees. So you don't want to cook your meat up to the desired temperature. You always want to go like 5 or 10 degrees below and then let it sit and rest, all right? And then when it's done resting, you temp it one last time and And it should be good. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to cover this. I'm going to trim my waffles here. They're crisped up real nice in the oven. Very nice. Very, very nice. All right. Go with our drizzle of our sauce made out of maple syrup and honey. Oh yeah. Does that look good or what? And when you cut down in here, all tender and juicy, perfectly cooked. Yeah. That's the good stuff. Now that, my friends, is how you make Nashville Hot Chicken. Now there's Nashville Hot Chicken's like scrambled eggs. Everybody's got their own recipe and everybody makes it their own. And that's what's so good about it. I hope the poor fellow that was working behind the counter at the cafeteria at Sweetwater Sound watches this, because I told him, I said, yeah, I'm from Nashville now. I'm going to critique this chicken. But like I said, no complaints. The food was delicious there. So my recipe for the waffle batter made like really too much. And the batter's not going to keep. So since we couldn't share any of our food with Maddie, the MacGyver's workshop dog, because it was just bloody, spicy hot. So, not that she probably wouldn't try it, okay? All she cares about, is being with her humans and doing what the humans are doing, or eating what the humans are eating. And we have to be careful, because of course you're not supposed to give them human food all the time, but she looked kind of depressed because, we didn't share anything with her. So I'm gonna take some of this waffle batter and cooked up a batch here with a couple of waffles for her. That way she'll feel like she got something. All right, kiddo, I gotta let these cool down. They're too hot. They're too hot. They're gonna burn. They're gonna burn your mouth, baby. This dog's not spoiled, not one bit. Thank you for watching. And, next time, Tammy will be back and she'll be going ahead and, making up something good, I'm sure. She always comes up with something delicious. That's why I'm fat. But anyway, please subscribe and welcome all comments. And we look forward to posting more videos to the Laura Teta Show channel as we move forward. I know it's been a while since we've posted some, but stay tuned because we're going to be doing some good cooking. See you next time.